Thanks for joining us on Not Boring CEs, where we don't think you should be bored to death while getting your continuing ed. Keep listening here, then hop over to notboringces.com to get all your online CE credits. All right, y'all, let's get to learning. Alexis Overstreet is a licensed clinical social worker, recovered burnout, and has 6 years of practicing, coaching, and speaking about self-care for therapists. In the areas of body-based mental health, she has 3 years of coaching and speaking about healing from and reducing burnout for CEO therapists who are scaling their practices and/or building multiple streams of income. Her training and practices of transformation include certified brain spotting practitioner and consultant, TRE, that's trauma release exercises, certified provider, level 2 MELT method instructor, level 1 internal family systems practitioner, and interpersonal neurobiology practitioner. It is her absolute jam to meet CEO therapists and digital CEOs alike at the intersection of running and operating traditional practices while scaling to revolutionary wellness brands. Welcome, Alexis Overstreet. Welcome back to Not Boring CEs. I am here with Alexis Overstreet. I'm really excited to talk about self-care with Alexis. It is her bread and butter. It is what she eats, sleeps, and breathes. And if you haven't already checked out our other recording around self-care, you absolutely should. This one, we're going to talk about the self-care you're actually doing, and maybe give you some ideas of some other things as we talk. But I think, would you say an overarching thing is like we don't have to do it all?
Oh, for sure. I would definitely say that we don't have to do it all. We start talking about self-care and the categories of self-care and, how we try to achieve it, all those things, we tend to immediately get feelings of not enough or not doing enough or not having enough time or shame, or especially with therapists, I think some of this is shifting, but we definitely have had this in the past, thoughts around, I tell people to do this all the time and I don't do it. And so I think that validating what we're already doing and helping to put in I would say a modern perspective can be very validating and useful for us. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that some, about how like we're in this changing modern world. And that's got to influence how we do self-care. I think about like if self-care had been a concept at like the early 1900s, it would have looked really different activity-wise, right?
It would be very different, yes.
Yeah. So what considerations do we need to consider?
Right. I love that. It's like the word in the definition of the word.
Yeah.
But there are several things that I think can be really helpful at this stage of our existence. We live in a very modern and accessible, convenient, efficient world. And it's not a terrible thing. So I'm not here to bash that. I enjoy convenience and having fun with technology. And, I'm a Gen X, right on the cusp of being a Gen X and geriatric millennial, however you want to call it.
You and I are there together.
So I remember not having many of the conveniences that I have now. And so they can be so helpful and useful in just us accomplishing the things that we want to do on a daily basis. And also there is a way and a means by which we get this information that we don't talk about because we don't really have the information or access to the information around it. And it has to do with like 5G and 4G and 3G and 2G, because all of those are still going on while we're accessing things like 5G, which is our high definition video on the run. This is why we can look at high definition videos while we're in the airport, things like that. So those things are really accessible. They also affect us on a cellular level, and so that is where some of the different categories of self-care come in. I talk about like the body-based self-care, like how do you take care of yourself around that. And then we have, because of also of technology, we have a lot of access to information. And I'm not sure if our empathy meter can handle that most of the time. It's
Yeah.
just like, oh, like, we constantly have information around, people, not being well, or war, or family members, or racial things, politics. I mean, as I'm
Mhm.
naming things, you probably are even, you feel it in your body as I just mentioned it, because we're
Yeah.
always, yeah, because we're always.
I'm I notice I'm also like seeing it like it's an Instagram scroll
Mhm.
as you say it. I'm like
Yep.
imagining the
Or,
images that go with that and with
yeah.
each one, as well as like headlines.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
So we want to consider like the cellular impact that we have in our body from 5G. We want to consider technology and the different images that we constantly see like all the time. We, want to consider like how our body is responding to like environmental issues that are, like pollution. And I know those things seem kind of like, oh, well, I mean, it seems like we should know about it, and it also is contributing to the burnout and level of capacity that we feel like we don't have in the world right now.
Mhm.
And so those are probably some of the top three that I would say, that we don't often consider. Food falls under that category of environmental considerations.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I'm thinking about how like it's so like literally the air we breathe. Like these things are like
so true.
currently all around us that there's no avoiding it.
Right.
There's just adapting and um discharging what we can.
So,
Um yeah, and thinking about my grandmother in her 20s, for instance.
mm,
Um, I mean, gosh, I don't know how old she'd be if she were alive right now. That's math. I can't do that fast. But um,
up there.
yeah, yeah. I think she got married in the 20s, right? So just thinking about how there there was reporting, there was, the newspaper, town gossip, these kinds of things.
Mm.
But your capacity didn't have to be as high for that information as it does these days, where every inch of the globe we can find out what horrible things are going on with just a quick scroll, whether that's what we were looking for or not.
So true. And in multiple platforms, right? Like we're checking, multiple platforms, or we have access to multiple platforms. We're driving in the car. We have a little bit more control over, like, back in the day, it was like the radio, you kind of get what they put out, but we have a little bit
Mhm.
more control over that now, just because, the different listening, podcasts and things like that. But, we could be in our car. Even if we're listening to podcasts, they also have, advertising. If we're looking at TV, that's a little bit more control because we have lots of platforms. But a
Mhm.
lot of the social media, like if we're having news pop up, if friends are sharing things, we can get the same thing multiple times
Mhm.
in multiple, platforms. And it depending on how we feel, how we've experienced it with our family. I kind of think about when we had like the COVID wars going, right? And
Mhm.
then, like now it's the, hashtag, are you like pro-Israel or pro-Palestine? And like, where do you stand on this? And you have to find a
Mhm.
place. And if you don't, then, and based on our experience with that, with our family members and our friends and colleagues and, all the people in the world that we relate to, that can show up as we're looking at things and as we're consuming. And so our empathy meter can get overactivated. And that
Mhm.
contributes to, stress in the body, that contributes to the content being downloaded in the body. So what I focus on is body-based self-care. I think that
Mhm.
is the foundation of self-care in our modern world.
Mhm. It's interesting too, I don't know if I want to call it a demand, but it feels like it sometimes, that there's a demand that you should keep your eyes open and look at these things. Like
Mhm. I
I
agree.
cannot watch the video of George Floyd getting killed.
Oh
I
my God.
cannot.
I
I
mean, every time I think about it, I get chills.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. I mean, like
just
there's a
the
clenching.
cellular. Yeah.
Yeah, I cannot. Right now, there are a lot of videos in my feed of like dead children and dead babies.
So true.
I I I can't function in
Mhm.
a reasonable way with the responsibilities in my life and
Right.
consume that.
So true.
But I also feel like there is pressure in
Mhm.
our culture of like, well, how privileged are you that you don't have to look at this? But the mom had to look at this.
I know. It's so
Yeah,
double-edged,
it
right? It's so
is.
double-edged.
Yeah.
So I think that can be a really hard uh balance, if you will. I don't really like that word, but it can be hard to manage some of that as it comes up, because even though you're wanting to avoid it, we still have access to it. We still have to put our mind around, not actually, consuming this type of information. Uh, and because I do focus on body-based self-care, I and this is just so relative. It's just something that most of us, unless we live in the woods or, like Jodie Foster did in like the movie Nail. I
Uh-huh.
don't know where that came from, but and unless we're a hermit, we have exposure to this now. I mean, they're filming in, like the Himalayan mountains and stuff like that. Now they have technology all over. And when we have that, when we notice like what is, when we have that exposure, we notice what's coming up in our body, because that is how, we're just not having this one experience, we're having the experience in multiple other experiences, which is where our empathy comes from, right?
Mhm.
uh, and so noticing what's coming up in your body, and then understanding that there are things that you can do in order to manage that, to befriend that, is a little bit of a better word to, overall, and acknowledge and aware, because that is really, when we come down to it, that's what self-care is about.
Mhm.
It's been very, very much commercialized. And when I start talking to people about this, one of the first things I say is, as we're starting to, talk about like the categories, talk about like how much of self-care you can do, what are you doing, all the information around that. See if you can notice. Well, the first thing I try is just to validate. There are going to be emotions that come up around shame. I said this a little bit earlier, around shame, embarrassment, inadequacy, kind of those challenging emotions. We do have emotions around joy and excitement and fulfillment, contentment. We want to try to get more of those, right?
Mhm.
Before we can get to some of those, we tend to have some of those challenging, constructive, negative, however you want to say it, emotions that come up. And if, like, you or anyone even listening to this is experiencing this as we're talking about self-care, just notice that, because it's a very normal, typical emotion experience to have, because we are always focused on trying to get like the next thing. I need the next grab. If there's a list, I need to check everything off. And it really is a suggestion. It really is an openness to awareness when we start talking about self-care and what are the current world that we exist in right now. And so if you are noticing that, just notice it, and literally take a deep breath. And that is a start of body-based self-care. That is where the very essence of it is where it starts. Because if we can start noticing how our body is responding to the threat, and threats are so relative, we can notice that and then shift and say, okay, this is what my body is telling me. And just even take a deep breath. We talk about deep breaths all the time, but it is really so useful in how we exist in this world. And there are other things that you could do, body based, and we can talk about some of those suggestions later. But I just wanted to say that, like, as we're talking about this, as we're talking about the modern world, as we're talking about all these images and things that we're seeing, we may experience, like we just said, like anytime someone says George Floyd, we're just like,
Mhm.
what's coming? We're bracing ourselves, right?
Yeah.
So I just wanted to just kind of say that to validate the experience, and also invite and welcome folks into this idea of what is actually body-based self-care, and how can I redefine, think differently about what self-care is. How can I resist what has been fed to us around what self-care is from our capitalistic, all-consuming, commercialized, culture
Mhm.
world, really.
Yeah. So, can we kind of describe some ways to get to homeostasis when we are super activated? I'm hearing like, notice that you're activated in some way. Take a deep breath. That's a great start. What are some other ways to get us to homeostasis?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Taking a deep breath, there are lots of different ways to take deep breaths. And so, whatever works for you, like if you're listening to this podcast now, like even, Allison, we were talking yesterday about your singing. I got so excited about that. Um, or the other day, it wasn't actually yesterday, but anyway, whatever type of breathing exercise works for you, just lean into that. We want to, uh, I was going to say we want to kind of focus more on the diaphragm because that is really connected to our central nervous system, all of our nervous systems actually, but more so our vagus nerve, which is the longest nerve we have in our body that just connects and tells different areas of our body to like amp up and get ready for something, or just okay, chill out, we good, it's not a big thing. And so if we're doing the breathing through our diaphragm, it helps with that. And so whatever type of breath is going to be helpful. The other thing I usually try to help people get to a place of homeostasis, which is not an elevated state, not a collapsed or frozen state. It's somewhere kind of in the middle. We don't like talking about being balanced, but that's what it is. You're not like super activated, because there's going to be some level of activation just living in life, and so that's just a given. And then you're not collapse is noticing like where there's tension in your body and just come to a place of relaxed body state. That's it. Just that is it.
Mm-hmm.
When I work with folks and, tell them this, they're just like, what do you mean? And I'm like, where's tension in your body right now? So if you're listening to this, and also for you, Allison, like if you're noticing if there's tension in your body, just relax it.
Yeah. Which is sometimes hard for me. Like, I can like right now I feel it in like my neck and shoulders. And I'm trying to relax it, but it doesn't always work.
And maybe it doesn't need to work right now, right? Because
Right.
you're in this place of which is okay. And also we don't also need to be like this wooden panel. When we're doing things, it's like if you're trying to sing, you have to have, relaxed body. You have to have relaxed facial muscles. If you're trying to run track, you can't be tense. You really need to relax in order for your muscles to work optimally. And so coming to a relaxed body state can be really helpful. What I notice so many times is that people like to squeeze their butt cheeks. We're just like hanging out, chilling, not doing anything. And like butt cheeks are like, for no reason. And it's just like our body is bracing for something. And it's because of the modern world that we live in, images, even when we're driving, we see bumper stickers, it's just like, are you team me? Are you team against me? And so this is just that we live in. And so coming to a relaxed body state, if you can notice like where there's tension, and it seems so simple, but some of the folks I work with, they have to do this like 50 times a day. Yep. And it's just a quick automatic kind of thing. Another way to come to a place of homeostasis, I talk about it all the time, is hydration. Hydration is one of those things where actually we need more than we have. We need more hydration than we have in the past because of the electronic, invisible waves in the air I talked about earlier, the 5G, 4G, 3G, all of those are still here, and they impact us on a mitochondrial level, on the cellular level. And so our cells are busy trying to, and we're electric beings. So let me say that we're electric. And so water is a conductor. And so we want to be able to flush some of those things out so that our body and our cells, our tissues are not as activated. And so another way to get to a place of homeostasis quicker is to just stay hydrated. And that is with, water. It could be with water-filled foods, which is fruit and vegetables. So those are probably 3 easy ways to do that really quickly that are really accessible. Taking a deep breath, relaxed body state, and then drinking water.
Awesome.
Or fluids, but mainly water.
Yeah. So thinking too about like, we have these modern stressors, and we probably need some modern skills to be able to manage them. Like my grandmother could take a deep breath. She could release her shoulders. She could, do all these different things. What do we need to do that's maybe a little bit different from our grandparents?
Yeah, that I love that, because this is one of the reasons that I got into doing the work that I do, like transitioning from traditional therapy to working in coaching and, resilience coaching, training, self-care, anti-burnout prevention, all those things, is because I was in a chronic state of burnout. I really was. Working in agency work, and even when I moved to private practice, it wasn't like a huge change. I am a worker. I love work. A lot of what I do defines me and my purpose. I work on that a lot, and I'm also aware of that. And so, I was in a constant state of burnout. And as a result of that, I was experiencing, different conditions with my body that was happening. I was having chronic sciatica, could not literally put on underwear. That is, in my 30s. Like, yeah, no, I didn't sign up for this. And heart palpitations. I had to change my diet, with the foods I consumed and things that I was drinking. And so, and I wanted that to change. It was impacting how I showed up, not only at work, but like outside of work. I couldn't do things. I would just like collapse because I was so impacted. And so I found trauma release exercises, which is an indigenous practice, believe it or not. And we're talking about like, how can we add these modern things like into like what we do? But, many of them are indigenous. We've just like lost them along the way. And so I found trauma release exercises, which is TRE. Many of us may know about that. And what that allows us to do is to, number one, be in relationship with our body. I love it. And then it allows our body to do the natural thing that it's meant to do, which is shake and tremor, come to a recovery state. And so just like we have an activation state, fight or flight, we have a stress response. We also have a recovery response. So our body would not allow us to get to this like really activated state and not have a way to come down. That's like, telling your kids to do something and not having a reason why, because they're going to ask you why.
Yeah.
They're going to be like, but why? Because I said so. And that kind of worked in the 80s. But, these children now, they're a little different. They ask questions. And so our body has a stress response and a recovery response. So something like trauma release exercising, which is quick, which is accessible. You don't need tools. You just need to know about it. It's all over the internet. It's something that, I help people do with their bodies, and releasing that. That's one of the things that has helped me over the last 2 years of, being a person that puts out a lot, and then also requiring a lot in order for me to restore myself. It's amazing. And then also connective tissue work. I love to do connective tissue work, which is the exercise that I use. There are so many different ones, but a particular intervention I use is melt method, which uses rollers and balls to move and shift and to discharge, energy out of the body. And it's not like your typical roller or your typical ball. It really uses, kind of impressionable, soft surfaces, if you will, in order for the fascia to respond to that. Because the body does not necessarily respond to the pain that we give it. I know we think sometimes that, it needs to hurt so good. But the body actually repels that. It's just the body doesn't want that, and so giving an education about that can be really helpful too. And then other polyvagal exercises, using, eye movement, using different, massages or releases in the body. Those are some modern ways in order to build self-care. And what I love about those too is they're accessible, they're easy to do for therapists. And most professions nowadays, because everybody's always about efficiency. We're always trying to get more efficient so we can be more busy. I don't know what that's about. It's a real thing. So it's accessible, it's easy, and it's building a relationship with your body. So it's like, what would your body say to you? What would your nervous system say to you if it could talk? Like, would it be cussing, or would it be like soothing and saying, you did such a good job? Or would it just be like, girl? So
yeah. Yeah, I can imagine mine at different various points in my life being like, this again, really?
And even at this point in my life, like different times, I'm aware, professional. I just, I'm smart. All those things. I'm outgoing, all of that. And also, I'm human. And so I don't always do the thing that I need to do in order to get where I need to go. And so
Mhm.
sometimes my nervous system will speak to me even in this self-actualized state that I'm in.
Uh-huh.
She be cussing.
So I'm thinking about like, so we've got categories I'd love for us to go through. And body-based was the very first one. I should have preempted that with like number one, body-based.
Mhm.
Um, can, can we talk some about how leisure and enjoyment,
Yeah.
like what that category means and looks like?
Yeah, that is leisure and enjoyment is one of my favorite. It's a thing that you do to have fun. It's a things that you do to bring joy and smiling and laughter into your life, which, as adults, we don't think about that so much. When it happens, it just happens. Uh and also, we don't always find ways to cultivate that, you
Mm-hmm.
and so because we just get so busy with work and family, and as we age, older adults like our parents or the people who cared for us, and then we're involved in community, and we're taking care of the community, and so we're on this fast train, and we don't always get to cultivate that, and so that can be one of the things. I do self-care planning, resilience planning, and building those plans for folks. What are some things that you do and that really bring joy and laughter in your life?
Mm-hmm.
You know, because I mean, I do want people to think about it. Like, how often did you laugh yesterday? You know,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and kids, they laugh all the time. They're so resilient.
Yeah.
It's just so beautiful to see. And we don't often get to do that, and so being in a space where you can outline, this is what makes me laugh, maybe I need to put in looking at a comedy show like once a month or once a quarter, or however often, like when we go back to that self-care plan and we're just like looking at it like, oh, I haven't done that in a while, let me just maybe plan for that. I'm kind of in a funk, or in a place where I can't get out of my negative thought patterns, and so how can I shift that? It may not be something that you do all the time, but things also, I have my notes here, like traveling, dancing. I love sunbathing is enjoyment. We need sun, we need vitamin D. It's helpful also for our melatonin production. Playing instruments, cooking, shopping, crocheting, acting, knitting. Those things that really bring joy can be so useful in building our self-care plan.
Mm-hmm. And I think like to your point that most adults like don't have hobbies or fun things in
Yeah,
their lives. Like we've gotten so accustomed to work and
yeah,
obligation as the like what adulting is.
so true.
Um, and I think if people listening are not sure where to start, one of the I had like a huge awakening around this. I guess it was 2021 because I was like, I'm miserable.
So true.
I'm killing it at work.
Killing
I'm
it.
doing great. I'm doing a pretty good job as a parent and a partner and a
Mhm.
daughter, but like I'm miserable. I don't remember the last time I had fun. I don't feel connected to my friends who were great. It wasn't them, but I don't
Right.
feel connected to my friends when we get together outside or whatever in 2021 we were doing.
Mhm.
Um, and to me, I was like, I have to have fun. Like I need a hobby. Like I need a hobby. And I
Mhm.
went back to what did I enjoy back when I enjoyed shit. I
Yeah.
was like, what did I do in high school? What was fun then? And I went to a performing arts school and I always loved improv class.
Oh,
So I started taking improv back in 2021. I've continued continuously since then.
so good.
And now, as you know from our other conversation, like I'm a singer. And so I started taking music improv where we literally make up a musical,
Oh my
45-minute
goodness.
musical. So I was like,
Amazing.
yeah, and it's what I love about it is everything else in my life is scheduled in like 15-minute increments. You know, like everything is planned
Right.
and I know exactly what I'm doing when. And with
Yeah.
improv, I can't plan anything. It's against the nature of what I'm doing. There's no way to do it. And if
So
I bomb, which like I can't risk bombing at work, that feels like too high
Yeah.
stakes. If I
Mhm.
bomb on stage, like who gives a shit?
Yeah. You
It's really
improv.
nice.
You just improv.
Yeah.
It's so good for your brain,
Yeah.
just exploration. And, we don't get enough of that. That's so beautiful. I'm so glad that you did that. And also
Me
shared
too.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so even like how you thought about like, what did I do before to have fun? Even when we do things like that, we're exposed to other things because we're in circles of people that do other things. And so you may find that you want to do something else. I don't know if you
Mhm.
found out um, about the, singing, improv, or, that subset of it because you did improv classes. I mean,
100%. Mhm.
yeah, so we're around those. And so that's going to continue to evolve. And you just add that to your list because life may start lifing again. And it's just kind of where we are in the world. It's nothing wrong with it. We love the conveniences. We love
Mhm.
to exist and live, most of us, and so I would say that leisure and enjoyment is a category of self-care that we can try to begin cultivating.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if it feels like it's a lot, just start cultivating that, like maybe quarterly or maybe monthly, just having some intention around it. And if there is something coming up around, oh, I don't have time, I would just say, notice that, take a deep breath around it and see if we can shift that thought. And we shift that thought with, affirmations, gratitude, things like that,
Mhm.
which we'll
I'm
talk about.
thinking too, because I talk to people about like not having fun in their lives a lot.
Mhm.
And another place to look is like what's something that you're already expected to do or scheduled to do, and how can you make it fun? So
Mhm.
like I've
Cook.
got a bunch of kids coming over for a play date that we're recording this the weekend before Christmas. We're gonna decorate Christmas cookies, which I've done to some extent every year. And I'm like, "Ugh," like decorating Christmas cookies with a bunch of kids. But I went down a rabbit hole on these people who can really decorate cookies. Like, I
Mhm.
can't tell you the hours of my life I've spent doing this over the last week or so of like watching people where it's not hard. You don't have to draw, like you don't have to be good at drawing, which I'm awful at, but just
Right.
like, okay, maybe I just need like the right recipe and the right tools to be able to be creative
Mhm.
without it being like, here's just a smudge of red and a smudge of green, like, and calling it good. But now I'm like, I can't wait for these kids to get to my house so we can do this. It's going to be
Right.
so much fun.
Leveling up the cookie decorating. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, it's become like an ASMR situation for me almost, where it's just like, I watch them fill it in and it's so fulfilling and I can't wait to fill it in.
Yeah.
So it's instead of looking at it like another damn obligation right before the holidays, you're a mom when, instead of
Right.
going down that track, I'm instead like, how can I make it fun or interesting or
Oh,
creative?
that's wonderful. It's so great because, and I feel like too that has a lot to do with like mind shifts, like
Yeah,
shifting like your thought around it, like, oh, the drudgery of this, like, I can't wait until this is over so I can do the other thing versus like, how do you experience the moment? And
right.
so that's a different category of self-care that we can talk about. That may be the last one, but I'm glad that you did that and shared
Yeah.
it because
Yeah.
somebody's gonna get something from this. So, an example of two that I do that. Like sometimes my husband is a cook in the house, so I will say
Hmm.
that I'm very grateful for that.
Uh-huh.
Um, and I will also like plan to try to cultivate like cooking because I enjoy doing it. He loves to do it, but I also like to do that. However, if people are maybe listening, or if, some people, that is what they have to do every single day, throwing on some music while you do it, can be
Mm,
very helpful. We tend to
absolutely.
want to listen to podcasts all the time or some type of consuming information, which is really great. It's also great. And it's also good to listen to music to get you moving or, bring back some nostalgic like feelings and thoughts and things like that. So,
Absolutely. Yeah. Can we talk some about beauty and hygiene as self-care?
yes, that's a big one.
Uh-huh.
So, this is just a category of self-care. And one of my main reasons, I struggled with this for a while because, there is a rumbling, I would say, in the online space of, that, getting your pedis and facials and massages, those things are not self-care, that they are maintenance. And, this is just something that I need to do in order to keep going. And also, if it is bringing you joy, if it's restoring you on a cellular level, then we need to count it as self-care,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Yeah.
And that works to validate the process of like, I am actually putting in work, because self-care is work. If we are doing a lot to bring life into people, I thought that's what we do in therapy, as
Mm-hmm.
therapists, and, working to help people, reach their goals, personal development, and all those things. We're working really hard in that area. We also want to work just as hard in order to restore ourselves, because when we do therapy, coaching, any type of work like that, it's an energetic process. People come in and they're like, I feel like crap. And they leave and they're like, you're so amazing. I feel so great.
Uh-huh.
And it's like, what actually happened in that transaction? What happened? There was it was an osmosis of some sort. Even if you're using like protective and guarding and things like that, to protect your energy, there is still something that transpires in that, in that transaction. And so, we want to think about like, what are some things that we need to do in order to help like manage that? And if we're planning things like getting our nails done, even if it looks, good, it doesn't make you feel good when you see like your nails. And I know that I don't get my nails done, but because I love polishing my nails, but when I do them, it's so much fun. It's just
Mm-hmm.
like, and it's a whole like meditative thing. I'm doing my cuticles. I'm doing all these things that are just connected to it. And it makes me feel good. And so, I really try to invite folks to think about this as something that you're doing. You're putting effort into it. And so let's
Mm-hmm.
count it as your self-care versus like, this is just maintenance. Because I feel like that downplays it a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there is a part of me that resents that, as a woman, there's just more of this maintenance to do.
Mhm.
And it makes me happy. Like I really love my really nice smelling face oil. My partner, who is male, is not using nice face oil. I like getting my nails done. I like seeing them as I type or gesture or whatever.
Yeah.
My partner doesn't have the benefit of the pluses of that, even though I'm like a little grumbly sometimes about needing to go spend
Yeah.
time in the chair,
Mhm.
um, so, but at the same time, I wouldn't do it if I didn't enjoy it, like if it didn't feel worth it to me.
Right.
Um,
And then you
yeah.
could even just like bring in locus of control in that too. Like, is this something that like if you chose not to do it, could you not do it?
Yeah.
If it's a choice for you. And if it is a choice and you can make that choice, you have that capacity to do that. Is it something that you like?
Hmm.
Do you feel like you have to make the choice? I think sometimes that can make a difference in it too.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. And all of it is just like what I'm choosing to do, which is, yeah, good locus of control. I like that. Yeah.
Because we can get really consumed with the man,
Hmm.
the man and big brother, and I feel like I have to do this and all the isms, and that's very useful and important to think about. And also we want to be able to gain back some of that control of of our own decisions and power that we have around it.
Hmm.
And so if
Yeah.
it makes you happy, it really is something that is it's your thing.
Hmm. Absolutely. All right. Anything else around beauty and hygiene that we should touch on?
Hmm. No, I mean, I put a hair weave in here, just for
Hmm.
all my Black sisters up out here in the world, and also all my white sisters and all the colors and hues in between, and expanding out of that, um, or from that, through that, with that, because that is something fun that we do. A lot of times we consider like, oh, we have to go get my hair done, as it's maintenance. I just have to get it done, and also like, we feel much better when we get our hair done. It just
Hmm.
feels nice, and we feel sexy, and we're like all snatched, and it just feels really fun.
Hmm.
I also put like massages in that category. Also showers, I
Hmm.
mean, if you struggle with, depression and things like that, that goes under that. And it really creates a sense of restoring, even though it is like, we have to take care of our body.
Hmm.
Sometimes, if we're struggling with, or, depression is a challenge for us. We don't actually have to do that. you know,
Right.
that just sometimes doesn't quite happen like we want it to happen. And
Hmm.
so I really love this category too, because I think validating what we do and the effort that we put in, how we take care of ourselves in this very, very electrified and, often chaotic world, it can be really useful and value add for us.
Yeah. I think about like flossing your teeth, another thing in there where it's like, I don't know why I really like flossing my teeth. Like
You do.
I'm a devotee of flossing.
I love
Um,
flossing. I do too. I do.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it just makes me feel like I'm being such a good adult right now. Like I
That's
get a little
such,
boost.
that's
Yeah.
such good self-care.
Yeah.
This like, look at me. I mean,
Hmm.
bowlers back here. I mean, that's just, it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, yeah. And I also like the external validation that I get every 6 months from my dentist. You
I
know?
mean, like why would we minimize and say, oh, this is just maintenance, I have to do it? I feel like that's so that is actually buying into the man. It's actually buying into like the consumerist and capitalistic like drive to do the next thing and check off this list and nothing is important. I just have to do this when I mean it takes effort to floss.
Hmm.
But
Yep.
for people who don't love it, right?
Yeah, yeah. And for people who don't love it, I do have a good hack. That's what got me into it, is putting it in your shower. And it's like, wow, you're like, you've got your soap, you've got your floss. And it just, for some reason, it's easier to remember it there than next to your toothbrush.
Yeah, I love that. Or the drawer that,
Mhm. Oh, yeah. That
always
you're not going to open.
it's not happening.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
I think
Can
that's
we?
probably it for beauty and hygiene.
Yeah. And I feel like the flossing thing actually brings us maybe into the next conversation around like medical self-care.
Yes. So medical can also be under that category of like, this is maintenance, this is necessary. And also as we're building like our self-care plan and we're revisiting it like once a month, or when we're, not feeling like we're optimized in our energy, or we're right on the brink of burnout, or, we're headed towards burnout, like all those things, we can go to our self-care plan and say, okay, what is, under this category of medical do I need to address at the moment? So this is for folks who have, conditions that have already been diagnosed, like inflammatory or anti-inflammatory or inflammatory issues, things around, heart-centered things, diabetes, just mobility conditions, even gut issues. So it's for folks who have already had conditions and understanding like what does a flare up or outbreak look like, or not only that, but what does it look like when I'm leading up to that? That can be some indication of like what you may need to do for your self-care or to take care of yourself as you're leading up to that to get to a place of restoration. This is also, which is one of the most useful things, is, I help folks do is like, is it about time for you to get a panel? We have so much, I talked about like the cellular, I don't know how, like the cellular ways that we get tapped out because of the electromagnetic frequencies and fields in our world, and because of our environment. We're not getting as much nutrients from our food because of the soil and our monoculture, like all those things. Sometimes we do need to check in more for those blood panels and see if we have micronutrient deficiencies. And so sometimes when we're just not feeling up to par and we go to our self-care plan and we look under medical, sometimes that can help us figure out what we need to do in order to care for ourselves differently.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think about even the preventative care as being such an important part of this too. I found out this year that I'm at 3 times the average woman's risk of breast cancer. And so I have to get MRIs twice a year and along with my mammogram.
Yeah.
And like, I don't want to do that, but like, I'm gonna do it.
Right.
Like, because that's just really basic self-care that if they catch something, it hadn't been there long. And that's gonna make it much easier to treat. But
Absolutely.
it's a strange thing to like
To going to take this, like, this exam or,
yeah,
procedure done. Yeah. It is a strength.
especially yeah. And it'd be much more comfortable to just be like continue to trick myself into thinking I'm immune to these things because I'm still 20, but I'm not. Um
Right.
and taking those precautions ahead of time, again, it gives me a boost. Like I don't love being in the MRI machine,
Yeah.
but I also figure out how to manage it. And I'm proud of myself for having done it. Um, and being a good example to my girls of like taking good care of yourself.
Yes. So that's a really great, like, it's a great positive, like, reframe and thinking, because, like I mentioned, it can be like, the drudgery of having to go do this thing, and why me? Why does it have to happen to me? And why, we could, like, the why syndrome can come up. It's also a good way to take care of your future self,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and this is how you care for yourself. And it is also a way when we put it under self-care and we can validate that I am actually doing effort. I'm actually taking care of myself in,
Mm-hmm.
in a way where I am restoring myself. Then we can reduce some of the tension that may come up around like having to do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's a choice.
Yeah, it's a choice. And when you're on top of the more acute things that are like happening in the here and now, you're on top of your preventative. And I'll also say like there's a lot of privilege to be able to do that
100,
financially in this totally messed up medical system. Um,
100%. Yeah.
so there's a willingness too, though, to be like, well, we're not going to be able to go on one of the vacations we were planning because MRIs are really expensive, and I have yet to meet my deductible year over year.
I know.
So, so I'm going to pay for 2 MRIs and have to forego some things we were looking forward to, but that's still a more important form of self-care to me
Yeah.
than, I mean, let's face it, with kids, it's not a vacation anyway, it's a trip. Um,
Ooh, you know what? That's, yes. I have a nephew. I don't have children, but I have a nephew, and that is facts. That's accurate
Mhm.
right there. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're doing the same thing in a different location.
Yeah, yeah. And I think too, there's privilege in like, I'm a middle-aged white woman.
Mhm.
I'm still a woman, so I'm going to be listened to a little bit less when I go to the doctor.
Yep.
But I think about folks from other cultures, people who are people of color, like they're often not listened to as much by doctors. And so there's an earned distrust of the medical community. And that's got to be a hard thing to balance with medical self-care and especially allopathic medicine.
I would agree with that. I think I would agree with that. I think that there are multiple barriers that come up against this that create tension around in our body around, just being healthy. Just that statement of being healthy comes with so many connotations and and stories around, like, how did you actually even get healthy? Like, were you in a place, what is your idea of health even,
Mhm.
who gets to define that? Um, and so whatever that looks like, I think that it can be helpful in caring for yourself. But generally, if someone is, finding that they're in a place where they're very activated or things are not working optimally, or it has been a little awry for, I don't know, 2 or 3 months, considering this can be very useful in
Mhm.
figuring out how to get back to a place of restoration, because we
Yeah.
sometimes we forget. And we are talking about this in a, if you have people who are listening to this podcast, and there's a particular audience, so we
Mhm.
are definitely wanting to acknowledge the privilege behind that.
Mhm. So, anything else around medical that you think people should think about?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think that's about it. Other than, the typical, like, iron deficiencies, and checking in with your B12s, and just noticing or being aware of what is your particular deficiency that has happened in the past, just being aware of that and how
Hmm.
that's contributing maybe to, like, the energy patterns that you're having.
Hmm.
Or experiencing.
So, our final one is meditative and spiritual practices.
Mhm.
Um, Something I feel is really missing from our culture. Um, let's dive into that.
Okay. So the first thing that I just thought about was, you know, Norman Vincent Peale. Do you remember? Do you know Norman Vincent Peale? He's somebody from back in the day. My dad used to make me read his books. Actually, my dad used to make me listen to his tapes. So that gives
Uh-huh.
you an indicator, like of
Yeah.
what, like how old this is. But and one of the things that it is positive thinking, so it can be a little counterproductive. Positive thinking is not always helpful. It can be, but it's not always. It can be incredibly invalidating at times. But one of the things that he said was, we are what we think about all day long.
Mm.
Right. And so what we think about, what is happening in our thought patterns is usually what will come to fruition if we, subscribe to the law of attraction and those things. And so focusing on meditative and spiritual is really focusing on personal growth and personal development. And that sometimes can be one of the biggest barriers to doing any self-care, right? So even if we approach self-care as in it's too much, I don't have time, there's always this thing to do, my list is already full, I can't do it, that is going to fall under that like category of meditative and spiritual. And if you say that it's too much, if you say that you don't have time, then that is what's going to happen, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it is easy to say that. It is easy to come from a privilege to say that when there are so many other things going on and so many different experiences that people are having. And also, how can we get to a place of working on and through our personal development so that we can achieve, the goals in our life for ourselves, for our family, and for the calling that we have on our life and the purpose that we have as we exist in this world. And so these are things like, of course, manifesting. That's the manifesting, and I say affirmations. I feel like that's like the new term. If I have to go old school, it's prayer, reading your Bible, and you
Mm-hmm.
know, not necessarily meditation, but it's the calling the things into existence. That is really what meditation, not meditation, but manifestations are. And so it's, doing your manifestations, doing, meditation, being mindful about, how we exist and the thought patterns that we have, affirmations, doing visualizations, doing journeys. And there is probably some education around like, how do I do some of these things? I would say the first step is mostly around noticing your thought patterns that are coming up. And are you feeling incredibly like negative or not as constructive as you have been thinking? Is it hard to do the things that you want to do because you talk yourself out of things? Are you noticing that is showing up?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I was.
Hmm. Yeah, the talking yourself out of things. I feel like that cognitive dissonance that all of us experience at different times of like, I know what I should be doing, but I don't want to, or I'm just not.
Yes.
So it sounds like you're saying that's rooted in the way that we're talking to ourselves about that
Mhm.
particular activity or whatever.
I would say that too. And I would also say, because with the body-based self-care, I do a lot of like body assessments. And so checking in to see, what is something like before you do, a particular body intervention or modality, and what is it like afterwards. And so if you're starting to notice like, oh, I can't do these things, or it's a ton of work to just even think about doing something, then that right there is the assessment. Now, do you have to have awareness before you get there? You do. And usually by the time people come to me and they're working with me, they're like at that place or way past that place.
Mhm.
Um, the goal of this like redefining self-care is, for me, is to help people understand like where they are in this trajectory a lot sooner, so that people don't have to get to burnout, so people don't have to get to a place of chronic and extreme stress in a repetitive cyclical way. So yeah, that's what I would say around that.
Mhm. One of the things I really appreciate about the way you talk about self-care is that you frame it as work.
It is work.
Yeah.
It is work. It is work. And And, sometimes people don't want to hear that because we already do a lot of work in a
Mhm.
lot of the things that we do. And also, if we can take some of the ways that we're already doing self-care and say, actually, I'm doing a lot. I'm doing a pretty damn good job at taking care of myself. And even when I'm not doing some of the things that I've done in the past, I know I have the capacity. I know what to do in order to get to a place of, restoration. Uh, you know, it can help to validate like where we are, so that we're not stuck in this, I can't do another thing thought pattern,
Mhm. Yeah,
right?
I think like looking through these and realizing I'm doing at least one thing in every single category, which sounds like isn't necessarily the goal. It's just like, because we don't want to put pressure. But I
Right.
do happen, me personally, I happen to be doing something in each of these categories, which in my mind makes me feel like I could do more,
Mhm.
because I'm already doing a good job taking care of myself. So
Right. It's
yeah,
expansive. It's
it is.
expansive, which
Yes.
is a beautiful thing. It's like, how can we validate what you're already doing? Right. Because
Mhm.
I would say the commercialization of self-care, number one, it's fluffy. The marketing and sales has always been around like Calgon, take me away. I'm also dating
Uh-huh.
myself again,
I'm
right?
with you. Uh-huh.
And it's just like it's fluffy and it's bubble baths and all those things are self-care. And also we just have to acknowledge that it is work. It's
Yeah.
work. And we get over that idea of like, okay, it is work. And also look at all these things that I'm doing. It's just incredibly validating. And then we can find capacity to add more things in there.
hmm Yeah. And it's interesting because I used to kind of in my head categorize my self-care as like things I do for self-care and things that are done for me for self-care, like a massage thing
Yeah.
is done for me or to me. And there was a time in my life where I was like, I'm just too busy to do anything myself. I will only invest in self-care that does not work for me.
Yeah.
Um, which wasn't it didn't get me out of the rut of I being so busy and so kind of put upon with obligations.
Right.
It wasn't until I kind of acknowledged that I just needed to do some work myself
Mhm.
that was self-care,
Right.
that all of a sudden time became more expansive. My
Mhm.
motivation was more expansive around self-care. Like I thought that I needed it one way and I was wrong.
Right.
Um,
It's already there, right?
yeah.
It's like the thing that you're trying to access is already there. We just have to maybe shift our mind a little bit and redefine and, really allow it to be an act of resistance of,
Hmm.
what is fed to us, where we feel like it has to be this idea and we can't, meet this measure or attain this thing. And we're already doing the thing. It's so
hmm
incredibly invalidating for us when we're out here doing really good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And just the sense of accomplishment that we can get naturally by taking care of ourselves versus the sense of accomplishment that we feel like we must earn by doing the right things that are sold to us as self-care.
For sure.
Um,
The difference.
like it's different. Yeah, it's kind of like it's either I feel like I'm taking good care of myself, like I'm a good grown adult, kind of
Right.
like warm fuzzy versus like, all right, well, I did that thing. I checked it off the list.
Yeah.
Which ultimately for me at least doesn't feel like truly fulfilling self-care, even if it was an action that is caring for myself.
Right. It can just be counterproductive. And it's, what's the point of that? Because it took work to actually do it. You're putting effort in.
hmm
Right. And
Yeah.
so we want to say, okay, yes, this is checked off of the list. Also, is it restoring me? Absolutely. Is it bringing me joy? Some. Are you taking care of your future self? Absolutely.
hmm
And so we're going to put it
Yeah.
in the self-care bucket. And when we see all of these images and ads telling us what we need to do, we can really shift and redefine what that means for us.
Yeah. Well, and
And
I think that,
that is an
yeah,
act of resistance. Yeah.
the commodification of self-care
Mhm.
is, in my mind, like part of the selling of the self-care thing there's always this undercurrent of like, it's easy. It's not going to be work for you,
Mhm.
but it is. It's always work.
Totally is. It's a
Um,
setup. It's a total like capitalistic commercialized setup.
mhm,
And that is really, that is can be the basis behind selling and marketing, is that
mhm,
you need a certain thing and you can't get to whatever it is that you want unless you get this, right?
mhm.
It's just that some of that is very toxic,
Yeah.
and and they take advantage of, of how people feel instead of really, focusing on how people can get to a place of wellness for themselves.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love self-care. I love talking about self-care. I love helping to shift people's thoughts around that, to inspire people and give credit to the hard work that we're doing every single day.
Mhm.
I mean, it's different waking up in, 2023, 24 and living as a human, versus doing that, several years ago or decades. Well, I could probably say years in this case because
Uh-huh.
we had a whole pandemic. It's just different. And
Mhm.
so if we want to do the things that we're doing as professionals in our privileged state of, professionals, how can we create longevity, and overall wellness for ourselves so that we don't tap out, burn out, and live in a place of chronic exhaustion and fatigue.
Mhm.
Because nobody's waking up to do that. Nobody's saying, "Oh, I cannot wait to wake up and feel chronically fatigued."
Right, right. Yeah. And I think about how self-care, like very intentional self-care, is so often a response to already being burned out versus so much of what you talk about, which is building resilience,
Mhm.
like and getting to a place like let's not stop doing self-care once we're out of burnout.
Right.
Let's like make it a habit, a lifestyle, like part of how we do our life so that we do have more capacity.
Yeah. Yeah. And it becomes more innate. It becomes more, I don't want to say like it. I mean, I think it can be like a machine, but not in a bad way. It
Mhm.
just becomes, something that is expected for you to do. Like if you're, in a way, like, so if you're doing a certain amount of work now, and then you increase on that amount of work, automatically, if you're attuned to your body, that you'll need to, maybe shift or add more things or maybe change something up because
Mhm.
of how you're responding, how your body is, telling you what you need to do different.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, Alexis, thank you so much for being here with us and yeah, and for just the force that you are in the world. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for asking me to be here. It's such a pleasure.
I hope that broadened your clinical horizons. Head over to notboringces.com to get your CE credit. Want to have a not boring conversation with me about your clinical area of expertise? You can apply there too. If you like this conversation, leave us a 5-star review, tell a friend, and be sure to subscribe for future conversations.